Hey there, welcome back to OwlDragon Adventures. I'm Scott Kegler.
And I'm Rob McPherson. This week we're going to take a look at Wonderland's War from Druid City and Skybound Tabletop. So, Wonderland's War is a game that I had been seeing in the Kickstarter realm for about 6 or 7 months, and I had it in my cart for a pre-order probably a dozen times.
Yeah,
I kept taking it out.
They had a pretty aggressive ad campaign, which is a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I just never really had the spare money at the times that it was out there, and I was really sad that I missed it, and then I managed to go to my friendly local game store, and they had a deluxe copy, so I picked that up. So that's just going to be our disclaimer here. This is going to be a review on the deluxe copy. There are some significant differences between the deluxe copy and the retail copy, but none of them, unless you're very tactile like us, really affect the gameplay. So I think that the gameplay review is going to be pretty standard.
Yeah, qualifier when we talk about quality, value, and...
Absolutely. Yep. So Wonderland's War is kind of a hybrid of a couple of different types of games. It's a bag builder, which is one of my favorite types of games, which is one of the reasons that attracted me so much. It's a little bit worker placement in that first round.
It's got a ratcheting worker placement system, which I like.
And then it all culminates in the second phase, which is the area control and war phase, and that's where you really scrounge up your victory points. So the game is played over the course of 3 rounds, each of them taking 2 phases. There's the Tea Party phase, and then there is the war phase. So in the Tea Party phase, you're doing the worker placement, the ratcheting to go around and build your bag, and then in the war phase, you're using that bag to go ahead and fight others for the control of the different areas.
Yeah, that's a great summary of it. I think what's interesting before we get into it is just we're seeing this, and it's actually influencing, like, on a design side for myself as well. Like, what would be, and you as well, like, what interesting mechanics to kind of like
can bash together.
Yeah, mash them up a little bit, and doing a mashup of various or things you just wouldn't think intuitively, like deck building to run the combat. I know some other games have done some deck building to do combat, but this was interesting in a maddening kind of way to stay on theme for the game.
So every time that you finish the Tea Party, you also add more madness chips to your bag, which basically kill your followers when you do end up pulling them in area control.
So that brings us into just gameplay on Wonderland's War. It's pretty smooth. I've heard some complaints online about the length. I personally haven't had a problem with the length of the gameplay. When you compare it to other area control. I mean, I feel like...
Yeah, it's pretty standard for an area control game. Like, maybe it's a bit long for a bag building type game, but, like, it's a bag building area control game.
Yeah,
I mean... That's really where it is.
I mean, I think the times we've played, it's been about a couple of hours, 2 to 2.5 hours, which I think is longer than the game box says. But, I mean, I never trust any...
It's pretty spot on, actually. So this says 25 minutes per player, and we played with 5 players. The last time we played.
That was a longer game.
That probably took about 3 hours.
A 4-hour game, or was that, a 2-hour game for 4 players, or 2.5 when we played the first time with 4. But either way, I mean, I typically plan on having at least 2 hours for any area.
Absolutely.
Area control. Sorry, we're looking at my dog. He's in the background, so if you hear him. I think it is right on pace for gameplay as far as the time invested. I like to have an area control, have a good amount of time to it.
Yeah, so something that I've seen a lot of complaints about, and I've complained about myself in the past, is that a lot of the time when you're building an engine or building a deck or building a bag, you don't get a lot of time to use that bag. And I think that this does a great job of balancing the amount of time you spend building and the amount of time you spend utilizing the build.
Right.
So, I mean, gameplay for me is going to be a high. I think they did a great job. It's 2 mechanics, the bag building and the area control, that we don't see very often, if at all. Please let me know if you know of any others like it, because I really like this. But yeah, no, it's going to be a high for me on gameplay.
Yeah, and what I liked about it for the deck building, before just getting into that, my score on it, but I really like the amount of agency I felt like I had as a player with, yes, there's a degree of luck with deck building,
of course,
but I liked the plan really worked. I felt like I was influencing my choices from actions on the board and what tokens I got to add to my bag throughout the game. And each game I felt like I wasn't horribly surprised by what I was pulling from the bag to resolve the area control aspects of the game, where you're basically attacking each other's units on the board.
Yeah, and I wasn't too surprised either when I kept pulling Madness, because that's just how my luck goes.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, but you still felt like what you were getting out of it, like what you spent your action planning for to get into your bag was worthwhile.
Absolutely.
So I thought it was a high gameplay as well. It was fun. I didn't find myself bored at all during the game. There wasn't horrible analysis paralysis. Like, it was relatively...
For most of us,
you always have a player or two. But, like, for me, it was, like, because the ratcheting was pretty intuitive, and I liked how the special abilities kind of worked for all the characters. There's a little bit of asymmetry.
Yeah, and there's objectives that kind of can guide the way that you're playing, which is nice because it changes up your strategy each game.
So even though there may be 3 or 4 choices on the board, you really just kind of knew what you were... I knew what I was diving into. I had an A and a B plan.
Right.
There was also what I think is a genius idea, is to have because it's a ration mechanic, but there is a penalty for over traveling the board. Right. So so it helps limit AP as well, because I'm not going to look at all 4 options on the table, because 2 of the options will cause me to get a negative for going for them.
Right.
So I like that as well, because it just kind of goes, stop, look at these choices first. I mean, yes, you could also make these decisions.
Yep. So, like, if there's something that really doesn't fit you, then okay. But, like, yeah, the penalty does help kind of speed things along, too, because you're more apt to just take what you see on the board.
Absolutely. So that's a high for me on gameplay. Yeah. So next, we have... Accessibility. I think and we have a special guest. This is Chester, my dog. If those of you are asking, you have any questions?
You may or may not see him because there's a giant box in the way, but he's joining us.
Accessibility. I think it is a pretty accessible game. I didn't have a hard time picking it up. Then again, I play a lot of area control games.
I've taught this to a couple of people now who do not play as many board games as I do, and I will say it's more difficult to explain than it is to play. So I kind of give an overview, and then I'm like, you know what, let's just start playing this first round, and by halfway through the first round, we're good to go.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if you don't, because it's a mashup, but I think as gamers, I think if you play a lot of different games, I think you'll find that interesting. I think maybe introducing ratcheting actions, action planning or worker placement with the deck building or the bag building with the area control, it's probably going to be mid-range depending on the player types you have.
Yeah, this is definitely not a light game that you're going to toss at your friends who like to play Scrabble.
Right. But it's exciting. It's interesting. And we'll get into this in design, but I think it's a very attractive game. But yeah, I think the accessibility is going to be mid-range. I don't think I ding it for it as far as how I feel about the game, but it's your point. It's a big box to drop on the table. It definitely is intimidating if you're kind of you're a light kind of gamer.
Right. Yeah. So this is going to be one of those situations where I kind of give a hazy answer on this. I'm going to put it as a mid to high on this because, as I said, like, it definitely leans into the mid because it's a little intimidating when you put it down. And it's harder to explain. So when you've got someone just telling you the rules, it feels much more in that mid-range. But then when you start to play, you pick it up really quickly. So it's in that weird hazy range for me.
My only small things as an experienced gamer, the iconography I think is overall very strong. There was one iconography I thought was weak. I didn't think the weak to strong chip symbols. So there's a symbol in the game to identify like a low level version of a chip versus like you'd have a rook, a flamingo or a rook, and there's a low version and a high version. They're designated. They just have this kind of wild card symbol. It either has a dot or a second dot.
Yeah, right. And even on the chips, like there's 1 dot or 2 dots, and it's small. And again, we're used to playing games, so I pick up on it very easily. But I 100% agree with you. It's not.
Once I knew it was fine, but I just had to keep reminding myself, oh, right, that one means this. So it was the only, other than that, the iconography, like, you know how many worker placements you're going to get at, or how many deployments you're going to get for the area control aspect. When you get more madness, the chip is very easy to know if I have to roll the madness dice. Like, That was all very easy to follow. It was the only iconography I had an issue with in the game. That said, not a major issue.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I would say, yeah, I'm about mid-range on the accessibility. Design. From a design standpoint, if you could see the box, I mean, it's a very attractive game.
Yeah, it is. It's gorgeous. It is one of the prettiest boxes that I have on my shelves. It's just the artwork. So what's great about the deluxe version is that they actually gave me some art prints for each of the different characters. Which, we forgot to mention, there's asymmetric gameplay.
No, I said that. I did.
You did say the asymmetric? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's you play as the Mad Hatter, Cheshire Cat, the Queen of Hearts, Alice, or the Jabberwock. And they all have different gameplay styles, and they're similar enough that you can help other people, but they're different enough that they feel unique. So sorry to duck back to that real quick.
Yeah, and I don't know offhand who did all the art, but what I liked about it too is
I'll definitely have it in the
we'll look it up, because the reason why I bring this up is I like it. It reminds me very much of Dice Thrones style.
Yeah, you're right.
It's got this kind of, and we'll find out in the comics if I'm wrong, or we'll have a correction here on the screen.
Yeah.
It has that look, and I've always liked that look.
Yeah.
It's very sharp. So it reminds me of that.
It's a very crisp illustration style, very bold colors. You never have to doubt which color is referring to which characters. Even the allies have very strong thematic colors to them. The cards are beautiful. I love the design of this game. In the deluxe version, we do have each of the little meeples that you use for your influence in a certain region, or your hit points in a certain region. They're actually carved into
custom cut.
Mm-hmm. So that design touch is really, really nice. It's a beautiful, beautiful game. And even so, I have the cardboard pieces in here as well for the non-deluxe version. And even the standees, instead of the miniatures, they're vibrant, they're beautifully illustrated. That aspect of the standard game, I would not have minded. I'm not usually a huge standee person, but I would not have minded it as much. It's really the cardboard tokens that would have bothered me.
Yeah, and the miniatures I think are really solid for the game. To your point, I think you could play it without them.
Sure.
Or proxy them if you had to, but but I do think it adds a good amount of value to the game.
Sure, and I just have so much painting in my future because I need to get some paint. At minimum, the five heroes are going to get painted, and I'm going to ink wash all of their castles, which is how you kind of assert your dominance in a certain region.
So that said, for me, design is high. I mean, it's been eye-catching since it was the first ads I saw as well on Facebook and otherwise.
Yep.
Next is talking about the quality of the game. Now, this has got a big kind of asterisk for me because it's the deluxeified copy of it. The quality is very, very nice. The box is a fantastic, has a nice weight to it. The cards are all very high quality cards.
I can speak a little bit more in terms of the quality, because what's nice is that they do give you all of the base components too. And I know that we just dove in and played, so you didn't get a chance to look at them. The cardboard that they use for the pieces is very high quality. It's the double thickness cardboard. If I'm not mistaken, it's even got that linen texture on top of it, which adds a bit more durability. I do worry in the base game that because it is a bag building game and you're constantly tossing those cardboard chits into a bag, that over time you're going to see some damage.
Yeah, and and it drives me nuts with any bag build. Like I'm always like deluxifying any bag builds I have because of that reason.
I like the clicky clacks.
I like that, but it's also just to your point. Like I'm not worried about like how I grab, like how I'm ruffling it. I'm not watching everybody at the table like destroy my game.
Right. Yeah.
Like as they're like mashing into this bag. So from a quality side, I like that they. So I'll talk about the quality of the actual deluxe tokens. Sure. I think they are really fantastic. I think they're up there with, like war chest quality, just a really nice.
So each of the tokens you put in your bag, they're actually like they're mini poker chips. Right. They're the same resin that you get from that. So it just is that nice hefty feel to them that feels like you're holding on to something.
Yeah, and it makes it for easy to kind of grab one. You know how many you have. I also find that hard to count.
Cardboard chips,
like by how many, if I have to grab one or two or whatever you're doing for that turn.
Yep.
It's much easier with the acrylic ones or resin. So very high on quality. I haven't seen a copy of the base game. From what you show me, the base game components are good.
Right.
But I mean, I think even the price of where you had paid for it, and I guess we can start to transition to that. But I will say before we move on that yes, it's a high quality game,
and I'll say it's a high for both deluxe and regular because. So my brain first went to comparing it to the deluxe. I'm like, well, no, the base game is definitely not high. But for what it is, for the game you're getting, if you're getting cardboard chips, if you're getting standees, they're very, very high quality versions of those. So I'm going to give it a high.
And that brings us finally to the value of the game. Do you want to admit how much you spent on the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent my firstborn. No, I spent $165 on the deluxe version of the game, which honestly, for what I got, is it's less than I've spent on other games.
Yeah.
The base game comes for $60, which is right in line with many, many just standard games out there right now.
I mean, you compare it to playtime to like a Blood Rage, and Blood Rage is like, even when it's on sale, it's like $80, $90.
Right.
So like, I mean, that's a lot of miniatures that come with Blood Rage.
Sure.
But playtime and stuff like that. So $60, I think, is a good price for it. But I agree on that $165 for the deluxe version of the game.
Yep.
I think you've played it a handful of times now.
Yeah, I've got 4 plays under my belt. So figure average. Let's call it average 2.5 hours per gameplay. So that's going to be 10 hours I've played already. So that's $16.50 per hour that I'm paying.
And I think you'll get this to the table.
I've wasted far more money for far less time.
I think you'll continue to get the value out of it. And I think because of the quality of the components in the deluxe version, the longevity will go with it as well. As long as you don't cool on the game, I think it's you'll get the value out of it.
Yeah, the only way I haven't tried this yet is 2-player. So there's slight variance in 2-player. So one of the coolest features, gameplay elements in the 3+ player version is when other people are fighting over an area, you have to place a bet if you're not part of that war. So you can... And it feels so Wonderlandian to me, too, that, like, you see these people fighting it out, and you're just sitting there with a cup of tea being like, I bet you $5 that they're going to win.
I think that's one of those things I would kind of miss. It's funny, it's like the reverse.
Because you don't have that in 2-player, obviously.
It's like the reverse of when we were playing Artemis Odyssey.
Oh, yeah.
Where, like, there was an aspect in 2-player that they take out in the rest of the player counts. You're like, oh, man, I would like that to be in the rest of the player counts, but I don't know how. Right. So like I agree with you, but I think you're going to get it to the table. We're going to get to our table again and again.
Yeah, I know I'll get it to the table at home quite a bit. My wife loves this game. It's probably her favorite game out of everything I've bought.
I think a lot of the theming, the look of the game, and the quality that like the sensory kind of aspects of the game makes it a really good entry into area control for somebody that might I don't think
the area control goes very quick.
It's like it's harder to take somebody that might be overwhelmed just by the mechanics and like be like throw them in front of a Blood Rage or a Rising Sun. They'd be like, this looks terrifying and complex.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I never thought about that. This is a really good entry into area control because it kind of teaches you the idea of managing which resources you put into which area and how that affects you in the long run of things.
Yeah, it's a lot of the basics are there. It's just it's in a pretty package, but it can be a very aggressive competitive game.
Yeah.
So I at the end, where did you land on it, or do you want me to tell you where I landed? First?
Why don't you go ahead and go first?
I really like this one. I've also won some games, so I really liked it. I think I'm at a 4.5 out of 5, and that's only because I don't ding it on much. I just don't think it's hard to say any game's perfect for me.
Sure,
but it's a very fun, satisfying game. A good. Kind of central game for your evening for a game night. It's not one you can just throw to the table. I feel like you have to kind of plan.
Quick game. Yeah. Not a quick game. I don't think it bills itself as a quick game though. The per player, I don't like it when they say per player because we all have those players at our table that is a filthy lie. And I don't think any of us have players at our table that balance out those players enough.
I know that you have limited space to print on the box or you don't want to have tons of writing, but I almost want these games to say like beginner player time and proficient player time count on this game. Like, sure, we could probably get it down to 25 minutes per player if everyone knew what they were doing.
Yeah, so I'm going to put it as a 4.5 also.
Nice.
Out of 5. It's a 4.5 plus, but I think the accessibility is a little bit intimidating off the bat. And I'm going to be trying in the future going forward to being less like starry-eyed about everything and recognizing, because as you said, like 5 out of 5, that's a perfect game. And this is damn close.
And I think the art is a little deceptive, which is good, I think, for how you can get people into it. But the box tells no lies. I feel like the box is like, no, if you know a board game, you're like, this doesn't look like a small game.
Yeah, so maybe this will be one of those games that we actually do a stream of in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know we've been teasing that we're going to do streams. I swear we're going to get to it. We just...
excellent. So that was Wonderland's War. We probably talk about it more on the channel a little bit. You've probably seen some of our stuff on TikTok as well.
Yep.
If you enjoyed this review and have any other questions about Wonderland's War, please go ahead and place a comment below. And if you are enjoying our content, and thank you for those who have subscribed, but go ahead if you haven't had a chance to like and subscribe this for the channel. We really appreciate your feedback, and we wish you good luck on all of your board game adventures.
And thank you for joining us on ours.